For today's Pathwing Presents episode, I am with Jason Berkowitz, who is the founder and SEO director of Break the Web. I really love the name. Break the Web is pretty cool, and that's pretty much what they're doing. They're an inbound digital marketing agency helping to, and they say it in their profile, I really like that, demystify organic growth. So we're going to be talking all about, demystifying organic growth today, and so that their clients can actually focus on, working on the new leads, followers, and obviously clients. So I'm pleased to have Jason on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucas. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good. So maybe in your own words, let us know, what is Break the Web all about?
Yeah, Break the Web's a digital marketing agency that, like you said, tries to break the web as much as possible. We have a heavy focus on SEO and organic search, as well as paid advertising. And you use the word demystifying. That's because there's a lot of nuance and a lot of shiny noise in the marketing realm. We really try to be like overly transparent and blunt. Like, we're New Yorkers at heart. Mm-hmm. So we might be a little bit too transparent sometimes.
Very good. That sounds very polite, though. Who would you say are your typical clients? Yeah? What is the type of company or the type of person that usually gets along really well with the team of Break the Web?
Yeah, our typical client are medium-sized businesses. It can be both local or national type brands. Medium-sized businesses that have an in-house marketing team. We work really, really well with existing marketing teams. So we're kind of an extension of their existing team, and we help integrate SEO into their current processes, help relay information with content, optimizations on page, and of course, link building and trust building.
Very cool. Very succinct, very clear. And those, I guess it's like CMOs or marketing leaders of those teams. What would you say? How do they actually learn about Break the Web? What would you say is like a journey? How do they discover Break the Web? I'm sure sort of using some of your own magic for your own services. Like, maybe you could tell us about the path that somebody goes through in order to get started.
Yeah, so we have a few different verticals in which somebody may come across us. Of course, SEO, we have to practice what we preach. So we do try our best to have our own SEO presence, but pretty much every agency can say that most of their own marketing efforts tend to lack as compared to the marketing efforts of their clients. Podcasts like this is a great way that people tend to find me. LinkedIn, social media, and even just word of mouth. Word of mouth and referrals through existing networks has been really fruitful for us.
Very cool. And if you would have to sort of summarize to somebody, like what would be sort of that, the unique, that advantage, or, something that characterizes maybe the company even a little bit? Maybe you can, tell us a little bit about the character of Breaking the Web so we can imagine a little bit about the people behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're self-humorous and weird, or at least I am. Our copy on our website is kind of dad jokey humor in a way to kind of break up that super strict, old school, traditional professionalism that might exist in the workforce, but also not being like too laid back. We get it done, but we have fun while we're getting things done. And when we have conferences on Zoom with our clients, we tend to laugh quite a lot. We tend to make fun of ourselves, and everyone's just having a great time. So we try to have fun while doing some really great work.
Yeah, and everybody who's interested can head to breaktheweb.agency to actually get a feel for it. There's some very cool copywriting there, heaps of traffic and leads instead of excuses. This is what you're getting when you're working with the team. So talking about the website, actually, what would you say, which role does the website play in client acquisition for you guys? You mentioned SEO before, but which role do you attribute to the page?
Well, we're starting to do a little bit more content on our side of things. We've been doing it for clients for a while, and now we're finally gearing up and have been for a few months, just continuously producing more content. So that helps bring in more top of the funnel traffic. And a big part of it has been for kind of just seeing what we do and the proof behind it. So we have case studies published, we have testimonials, and that has been probably the biggest reason. I think a lot of people go for our case studies and our testimonials, the brands we've worked with, the results that have come from the various campaigns versus people just checking out the website because they want to. Even just the term break the web in itself was like a phrase that was being used quite frequently in pop culture for a little bit. Yeah. So more so just to back up what they see from us.
Very, very cool. We talk obviously quite a bit about websites in the Pathmark Presents podcast. So what I like typically to learn, especially from, the leaders of the companies, what's their perspective on their own websites. I would be curious, right? What would you consider to be a strength of the current page? Like you mentioned already, sort of the, dry humor copywriting element. Like where do you see a strength? Is it the ability to convert, or, where do you see the strengths of the page?
I think we definitely have a lot of room for improvement on our own website, especially with creating a story and creating the proper journey. But I think some of the aspects are that we get a lot of feedback are from the cleanliness and the minimalism and the blocked styles that we have on our website. That seems to be very enjoyable. It seems to be very easy on the eyes. And it is set up in a way to allow people to navigate from page to page seamlessly without any trouble. But of course, there's definitely a lot of room for improvements. We're constantly testing out new things. I know we spoke previously about using video ask and video widgets, and we literally just set that up like last week. So we're testing that out to see how that works. If we're going to let it run for a few more weeks, if not, we'll probably scrap it. But we make our site. We really like and enjoy the fact that it's clean. It's very user friendly. It's professional while also being, again, clever with the copy.
Very cool. Coming back to the services, right? If somebody would be sort of going ahead working with Break the Web, like what is it, something that they cannot get somewhere else so easily? What would be a sort of maybe a competitive advantage when going with your team?
Yeah, well, with SEO agencies, there tends to be two different types of agencies. You have one agency that's really good at communication, but they kind of stink at execution and results. But then the other side of things, they're really good at getting those results, but they stink at communication. And that's where we really try to bridge that gap, where we're extremely accessible when it comes to communication with various check-ins and conferences and email exchanges. We make sure that there's full collaboration all around, as well as just making the information that we provide just easy and accessible as well. There's a lot of technicalities behind SEO, a lot of weird jargon that you try explaining to somebody and they're just like, okay, I need you to say it 5 more times, just really slow, and maybe I'll get it. And since we are working with marketing directors and marketing managers, they tend to have a bit more knowledge than the average person, let's say a business owner, but making sure that they understand what we're doing, how we do it, and how that translates into their end goal, as well as making it very easy to have them report to upper management. We try to help them and explain things so that they can also, of course, look like the hero in the company.
Very cool. I would love to sort of focus a little bit of your sort of general perspective on the marketing space at the very moment. There's a couple of questions that I would have. I would be curious, right? If you're thinking about the marketing as a discipline at the moment, inbound marketing maybe in particular, what do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to innovation at the moment?
I think, there has to be a villain in every role in marketing, and I don't want to paint Google as being the villain, but they're always kind of switching things up a little bit. And from an SEO perspective and inbound as well, they are switching things up and they don't give a lot of transparency. They're better than they have been in recent years with regards to what they're looking for, but they also might give sly comments that say one thing when in actuality might be another thing, but they're also, again, being very ambiguous in the way they say things. So I think just relying on third parties overall, and in this case, it's Google, relying on third parties to help with marketing can be a challenge in itself because there's only so much you can have control over.
Makes sense. And if I would say sort of, the concept of return on investment, where do you see the biggest challenge in marketing at the moment?
SEO is definitely a challenge to calculate ROI, especially because, if you really want to fine tune and get granular with data, there's only so much data that Google themselves will provide. They won't tell you exactly which keywords are bringing in which bits of traffic. You could see some of the data in Search Console, but calculating ROI in itself, I think maybe with any marketing vertical could be a challenge in a way. You have TV commercials that have promo codes that might have unique promo codes for each commercial, but then you go into a store and you see that product and you're like, okay, I remember that product from TV. I don't even know if people are still calling in to buy products from infomercials, but I think to directly correlate an ROI to a specific marketing vertical overall might be a challenge, but you try to do the best you can.
Super interesting. And sort of to round up that set of questions, I'm curious when it comes to conversion optimization, where do you see the biggest challenge?
I think people get really emotional to what's on their website and how things are. There's an emotional attachment. And I think whether it's marketing directors or I've seen historically, it's a little bit worse with founders and business owners, where they're very hesitant to make certain changes on their website because of emotional attachment. And that is a really big issue. When we look at data and we know psychologically what works, what doesn't, it's best to try or at least test it to see if it works or not. But people who just plain out refuse because of that emotional attachment, whether it's copy, whether it's the way things are styled, whether it's the messaging and brand.
Super interesting. I'm going to make it a bit hard now. If you could only focus on one thing, right, in order to improve sort of the marketing setup, what would it be? Would it be focusing on, setting up the roadmap? Is it focusing on specific growth initiatives, marketing, messaging, reporting, or, something else?
I think in marketing overall, probably planning and strategizing. That's kind of the stepping stone for pretty much everything. Just understanding what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who you're going to target. I think that whole strategization phase is probably the most important thing. And we work with a lot of brands that we actually just help them with initial strategy as kind of one-offs. And then they take it, they do their SEO and marketing themselves, but at least they have kind of the foundation on what they need to do, the roadmap.
Cool. Super interesting. I would love to switch gears a little bit and learn about you as a leader in the team. With all the information around there, right? All the different blogs and platforms and social media channels, where do you go in order to, consume content? How do you filter? What type of content do you focus on?
Yeah, I think I try to surround myself in the circles of like-minded individuals. So I'm part of a bunch of different Slack groups for people in my pretty much just like me, whether they're agency founders and owners, whether they're SEO specialists. Just try to surround myself with people that will go ahead and scour Twitter and scour LinkedIn and then post some really good articles there. Thankfully, I have that to rely on, but trying to be where the discussion is, in those type of Slack groups, a couple of email newsletters from people that I respect and I follow. That's where I tend to get a lot of information.
Any particular Slack group that you could recommend to the listeners, or are those more like close-knit Slack groups?
Yeah, from the agency owner perspective, Growth Comet by Ross Hutchins of CG Media is a really good one. On the SEO side of things, Traffic Think Tank is another good one. I've been enjoying a recent one, Content Team Leads or Superpath, I believe. It's Superpath from Jimmy Daly, formerly of the Animals Content Marketing Agency. That's been a really good one as well. I've been enjoying.
Super cool. Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, I want to jump into our rapid fire questions. Just a couple of short and quick questions to learn more a little bit about you, Jason.
Let's do it. I'll take a cup of coffee.
Very good to get ready. What's the last book that you read?
The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Okay, classic. What's the one single thing that you're focused on the most at the moment?
Internal culture. It's hard being a remote agency to have culture. So it always keeps bugging me out, and I always try to do these weird things to improve it.
What is the last thing you tried?
It worked well for a day or two, a pets channel in our own internal Slack group where everyone could post pictures of their pets. And we have team members, for example, Krista, who's a content specialist in our team. She has a farm, so she posts a picture of a goat to really throw everyone off. So that was one way in which we tried things out. It's been kind of quiet since then.
Cool. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would want to have fixed for Break the Web?
I think culture. It's still so hard. People end up, all the communication always ends up being about work. And, everyone does their own thing wherever they might be located around the world, which is great and all. But again, that's the conversation, is just about work versus taking the time to really get to know people. And there are things that you can do, like breakout sessions, to let people just kind of have a 30-minute luncheon on a conference. But does that make things awkward? I don't know.
Super interesting.
Kind of being forcing a relationship there.
Very interesting. Any, for other founders and agency owners to build up a remote sort of culture, any sort of, I don't know, book tips or places to go? Where did you learn about, building up the remote culture?
There was a website. I wish I knew how I found this PDF. I think the company is based in Barcelona. They're a design agency called Mobile Jazz, if I remember correctly. Somehow their PDF of their employee handbook just started going around. And I really respected the way they had things set up, the things that they do. They're a huge company. They have hundreds of employees. They do, of course, the outings where everyone kind of meets a few times a year. And of course, in a pre-COVID world, in a central location. I thought that was really interesting. And I actually used some information from their own handbook to try and formulate into our own agency. I really respected a lot about that handbook.
Very cool. Since I slowly want to wrap up the interview, actually, since we're coming to an end, I want to ask you, if we sort of zoom 4 years back, when you started Break the Web, what's one advice that you would give yourself if today would be your very first day working on Break the Web?
Avoid shiny objects. I think there's a lot of marketing in marketing, especially from learning how to do SEO to learning how to build an agency. Everyone has a course nowadays and everyone's pitching their own marketers. So they have really good sales pitches and really good copy. Just avoiding the shiny objects and distractions and get down to nitty gritty. There's no shortcuts. It's just not going to work. Get your hands dirty, succeed, fail, succeed, fail. It's going to happen. Just get in the trenches and do it.
Very cool. Jason, I want to thank you for taking time for the Pathmark Presents podcast today. I want to give you the very last word, right? If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about the team of Break the Web, what's the one thing that they should remember about the company?
We like to have fun and we get shit done.
I like this one.
Part of my language.
All good. Thanks for being part of the show, Jason.
Thank you so much, Lucas.